One of the best-known New Zealanders in the UK is Dame Kiri Te Kanawa, the famous opera singer, soprano, of course. She lives in New Zealand in the north of the country, in the Bay of Islands. I caught up with her earlier. I asked her about how she heard about the Christchurch shootings, her reaction to them, and what she thought they would do to New Zealand itself.
Well, I listened to our message from the Prime Minister, and I thought she said the most comforting that one could be comfortable with. But the news has been quite awful, and I think our beautiful New Zealand has lost its innocence.
She talked about how New Zealand was a place where this kind of thing didn't happen, and certainly, obviously, wasn't welcome. Do you think that's accurate? Is New Zealand a place, in your experience, where those kind of racial tensions, religious enmities, are not really on the surface, don't really come to the forefront of public life?
Well, they shouldn't, but I think they do if you listen to enough, and I'm not a social media person. But I think there's some underlying things there. But I've never been in that world, so I've been very lucky to have escaped, if I have escaped. But like last night, I don't think a single New Zealander was asleep last night. And for Christchurch to be going through this, they've had enough. It's devastating enough with the earthquakes and all that they've had to deal with. And now this terrible thing.
There is this idea of New Zealand as somehow a place apart where these kind of things don't happen. And from your earlier answer, it sounds like you think that may have gone now.
Well, I think our innocence has gone, our beautiful country. Thinking we were a long way away, unfortunately, it's a small world now. I heard one announcer last night on radio from Australia saying, I'm scared. And I think that's what I feel now. I'm not a frightened person, but I am scared for everything, my children, my grandchildren. What do we leave behind as we get older? What are we leaving?
What do you think should happen next? If New Zealand has lost its innocence, can it regain it? How should people respond to this?
I think we just have to leave it in the hands of the government, because that is where our leadership sits. And we have to just abide by all the rules that we can, and that the government will take notice and put certain things in place, I'm hoping. But we're just an ordinary citizen living a very ordinary life in an extraordinarily difficult time.
Because part of the attraction of New Zealand and part of their innocence is the freedoms that you find in New Zealand. It would be a pity if in trying to keep the innocence you lost some of that freedom.
Yes, but I think I said overnight, I don't think we're free. Even freedom's been going and pronounced, I don't feel free at all.
And yesterday's events will only reinforce that.
Yeah, and I'm up in the Bay of Islands, the most beautiful view that you could have. And further south, it's just people in distress. It's just so awful for them. For the people of Christchurch, that's the terrible thing too.
Is this the country still that you grew up in, do you think?
Oh, yes. Oh, it's still beautiful. But, life is different from when I lived 50 years ago. The world has changed. But we can't go back. Unfortunately, we can't go back.
Dame Kiri Te Kanawa, thank you very much.